It's been 2 years since the world is grappling with COVID-19 pandemic, and now we have our new variant on the block called as Omicron. Hello and welcome. This is Rachel V. Thomas from Delhi Bureau INS. We have with us today esteemed Indian microbiologist and virologist, Professor Gagandeep Kang. She is associated with Department of Gastrointestinal Sciences at Christian Medical College, Vellore. She is also the first women scientist from Asia to be elected as Fellow of the Royal Society. Welcome to INS TV, ma'am.
Thank you for having me here, Rachel.
All right. Okay, so the outbreak of COVID-19, which was officially announced in December 2019, is, has taken a quite humongous toll on the whole of humanity, we can say that. So now when scientists were pointing out that it's almost over, the pandemic is almost over, and it can now take the form of an epidemic or as an annual flu, now we have this variant called Omicron. Your comments on it, ma'am?
So if we look at viruses that have been with us since ancient times, viruses evolve. And RNA viruses evolve much more than viruses where the nuclear material is made of DNA. Influenza is one example of an RNA virus that evolves. SARS-CoV-2 is another example of an RNA virus that evolves. When these variations happen, we can call them strains, we can call them variants. And what we are seeing with Omicron is a natural process of evolution of the virus. We've had other variants before. We had alpha, beta, gamma, delta. We've had a number that did not become variants of concern, but were responsible for local circulation. And now we have this new variant that seems to be spreading more easily than other variants. It's just been announced. There's very little we know about it. And in the days to come, we'll learn more. Now, does this mean that the pandemic is not over? Well, I have to tell you that we are still living in a cholera pandemic. Do you hear about that? So we've actually had multiple cholera pandemics documented for centuries, and yet they don't come to attention because cholera settles down and you see some cases, then you don't. But it doesn't mean like the pandemic has gone away completely. So with Omicron, this is just another phase in a pandemic, and we shouldn't panic about the fact that there is a new variant. We have tools to deal with it.
Okay, so coming to one of the most important questions, whether this Omicron variant is more lethal than the Delta variant, and is it more transmissible than the Delta variant or the other variants, because it has quite a lot number of mutations, which also includes Alpha and Delta and other variants as well.
So the concern with this variant is because it has so many mutations.
Right.
Now, do these many mutations mean that the biology of the virus will change? Will it be able to infect more easily? Will it cause more severe disease? Will it be able to escape the vaccine immune response? At the moment, the only thing that we know is that it does appear to be a very transmissible variant. It seems to be spreading quite rapidly in South Africa, and now it's being detected in other countries. We will also have people looking in other countries to see how rapidly it is spreading there. Fortunately for us, this is a virus where you don't necessarily need sequence data to be able to say that this is the variant that is spreading. It has what's called an S gene dropout, which means that of the 3 target genes that are used in certain kinds of PCR, one of those targets, the spike protein, gene will not be positive. So you can actually say, based on PCR alone, whether a person is likely to be infected with the Omicron variant. So that will give us more epi data on spread. On severity, we have no information at the moment. It's being described that there are no severe cases with this variant at the moment. Is that because most of the cases are being seen in young people, in travelers who are likely to be generally healthy? Or is it because this virus actually causes less severe disease? The variant has traveled, we know, to 20 odd countries, and this is just in the 5 days since the variant was described. So once we get much more sequencing data available in India, we'll be able to say more categorically whether it is or is not present. I'm told that the ministry has said that there is no detection as yet.
Right.
But you know that in the Netherlands, they were able to find detections of the variant even before the flight with infected people from South Africa came there.
Right.
So it's very possible that this variant is in many places that haven't done the sequencing as yet. But until you have sequence data, can't say for sure.
Okay. So, ma'am, what can you say about an impending third wave in India, and whether this particular variant will lead to that third wave in India, and how prepared is India for that?
So one thing that's very important for us to remember is that we have tools, right, called masks that prevent all variants from infecting us. We have tools called vaccines, which are very likely to give us some level of protection against most of the variants in the world. So if we think about masks, if we think about all of the non-pharmaceutical interventions that we've used before, masks, ventilation, making sure that there is no crowding, those will work against any variant. And we need to make sure that we do not forget that. We also have drugs. So molnupiravir has been approved by the FDA, and I hope it will be available soon in India because many companies are manufacturing it. It's not a solution to everything, but we know that it reduces the risk of severe disease if you get infected with any virus. So that's an option we didn't have in previous waves. And then I think vaccines are likely to have some level of effect. So when we think about a third wave, we have to remember that the third wave is not entirely dependent on the virus. It's also dependent on our behaviors and what we do to prevent the virus from spreading. And today we have many more tools than we had at the beginning of the year. So I don't think that the time is right to predict anything about Omicron or about a third wave.
Okay. So one last question, ma'am. How far India should go ahead with this booster?
I think we still have a lot to learn, Rachel. So certainly if you have 3 doses instead of 2, it does broaden your immune response. We know this from studies that have been done with the mRNA vaccines and by mixing vaccines, like, for example, the AstraZeneca vaccine mixed with the mRNA vaccines. So giving third doses broadens the immune response, improves protection, particularly in people who are very vulnerable. Will that be needed for Omicron is not something that we can answer today, but hopefully in 2 or 3 weeks, we should have the data on how much Omicron can escape the immune response of people who have received the vaccines that we have available at the moment. And based on that, we can make decisions on boosters.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for having spoken to us on INS TV.
Thank you.